All right, everybody. Why don't you guys have a seat real quick? I'll give you guys 1 minute to do. All right, find your table, find your gift bag. How's everybody doing this morning? One more time so you can hear you outside. How's everybody doing this morning? Awesome. My name is Christian. I'm on staff here at Hoboken Grace. For those who don't know me, I work with the great Nick Lindsay right over there. And we just want to thank you for coming out to our Better Together conference. So give yourselves another round of applause for coming out here. Awesome. I am very excited for this morning. I'm very excited for our special guest speakers. I'm excited to hang out with all of you guys this morning. And I'm personally excited because this is my first year that I actually get to lead a dinner group. So long time coming, but I'm very excited for year one. I want you to make some noise if it's also year one for you leading a dinner group. This is your first time. All right. What if this is year two for you? No one? No year two? Year three? 4? 5? What if you've been leading a group for 6 or more years? How about that? Nice. Who do we think in the room here has led a group the longest? Who is like 10 plus? How many years, Sarah? 13 years. Give it up for Sarah. All right. No, so I'm very excited for this morning. I'm excited for all that we have today. We have P.F. Chang's coming later, which I think that's the thing I'm the most excited about. Leave some room. I know we have some great breakfast back there, but please leave some room for that. But right now, I just wanted to start our morning off with some prayer, and then I'm going to bring Nick up here, and he's going to lead us through the day. So why don't we bow our heads? Dear Heavenly Father, I just want to thank you for this great morning to spend here with all these awesome leaders as we kick off a great dinner group season. I pray that we just fill this morning with great conversation, great laughs, and great knowledge that we get to take in about what it means to be a leader and how we can be better equipped to lead those in our groups and all around us. And in your name, amen. All right, like I said, we're going to be going through the day. But right now, why don't we give it up for Nick Lindsay, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you. I have my thumb attached to my face. Hey, guys. So glad you guys are here. I was just thinking right before I came up that I am thankful. If you didn't know this about Hoboken Grace, we started 17 years ago, and we were a church plant. And the thing about church plants is you have to do absolutely everything. And right now I am like sweaty. This is not a great way to start a presentation, but it just reminds me of those early days when we would hustle to tear down a bingo hall and set it up as a church, and then we would all pause together, and then we would go and worship, which was incredible, and then we would tear everything down and then go to the after party. So this is what the feeling I'm coming in with right now. No, but I am so grateful that you guys took your Saturday to come here to work on becoming better leaders so that we can build even stronger communities in here. It is more important than ever that we need strong communities. I think that you guys can see consistently how I feel like our culture is just kind of losing grip on kind of what community actually is. And I think that we end up becoming this place of refuge for people. And one of the things that has been really awesome is that, give me a second. So you guys may have heard this book. This is Anxious Generation. And I originally read this book. So a lot of people are talking about this book, but I'm interested because I don't think the church is talking about this book enough. Because I think that this book has a lot to say about community as a kind of antidote. And so what's really amazing is I originally read this book because I have I have a 7-year-old and a 4-year-old. So this is Marcus and Emmeline, who are my kids. I should introduce myself first. I'm Nick. I've been here 17 years. I realize we have some new leaders. And I haven't, as we've been growing, it's been interesting because getting face-to-face with everyone isn't something that I always get to do, which is really cool because we have so many people that are also recruiting to kind of help build our number of groups that we have here. But anyways, because of these two, I really wanted to read this book on Anxious Generation because This book has a lot to say about social media and has a lot to say about cell phone use. And it's written about like the children and the effects that it's causing on them. And what's interesting is I got into the intro of this book and I went, oh crap, he's talking about me, right? I can see some of the things where they're saying like, they're the fear of things that just don't necessarily exist, or like getting way worked up on things that aren't really an issue outside or in their present community. And it's interesting if you're also a like Substack reader. I realize I'm going to be super nerdy here for a second. He has also an amazing blog where they just keep putting out more and more research and more amazing things. But what's amazing is that this book doesn't just describe what's happening to Gen Z. I see that this happening across the board, where we see these people coming in just with such a weight on their shoulders, not knowing who they can trust, and just constantly being marketed to and all these different things. And one of the things that the book really points to is face-to-face communication and being in a community. More than ever, like, these small groups make a huge difference. And I think some of you may have heard me say this before, but you always hear like, oh, this generation really values authenticity. Oh, they really value authenticity. And what's interesting is now they're saying it about Gen Z. I'm now old enough, I'm 40, but I'm now old enough to now hear multiple generations of phrases being used. And they're like, oh, so like when I was coming up and we were in church playing, they'd be like, millennials, they really value authenticity. You need to do X, Y, and Z. They value authenticity. And then they're like, now you hear it a lot where it's, oh, Gen Z really values authenticity. And so you see the same things happening. But I think when they say authenticity, what I think they're honestly meaning is that people are looking for meaningful conversations. They want to be a part of something where they know that somebody is genuinely listening to them. Because I think this illusion that social media and cell phones and just our culture in general can produce is, all right, I can do it on my own. Or if I put an idea out there, like maybe a few people hear it, maybe a few people like it and interact with it, but it's caused distance between us. And you can also see how it kind of has been separating us as well. And so I think us getting face-to-face, us sharing stories, and then ultimately following Jesus and encouraging people to do that is the thing that's really going to start healing our communities. The next thing I want to talk about is we have a lot of momentum going on right now, which is incredible. So we're coming into this fall with 69 groups. We are one group away from 70. We are working hard. I didn't know if she was going to pop in here. I have someone, if you guys can pray with me on this, we have someone in Bayonne. Like, we've had a couple people reach out about Bayonne group, and they've all been on the edge, there's 3 of them. They're all on the edge of saying yes. And so if you can, in your prayers for our community and stuff like that, I think it's really cool if you could pray for Bayonne and to see community get started there. But with those 70 groups, we have 23 brand new groups, which is just really incredible as we are heading into this. And so one of the things that we want to do today is we wanted to go back to kind of our basics and teach our foundations on what it is we believe about spiritual growth, what it is we believe about dinner groups, and how we think that they can best succeed. And we haven't been able to do this since 2019. We usually do it like every kind of 3 years as a crew. But what's really cool is you'll hear along the way some of the things we've picked up and learned in this journey of, how what we've learned more about groups, or even getting your feedback has been really good. I think there's been some really phenomenal ideas that are happening in groups that we've tried to include in here, of some of your ideas, things that make groups really special. One of the things, though, that I wanted to also acknowledge as we head into today, though, is one, I also want to thank you guys who participated in Be Rich. I recognize that wasn't the smoothest kind of transition, right? We started in the fall for a lot of us, And I think one of the things that we didn't recognize in our planning was like, hey, if we put this in the middle of their year, that we're going to disrupt some of the momentum that happens inside of groups. It was really interesting to see like how groups kind of build momentum. I think this was like the first time in my 16 years where I've really seen, oh, they really build these momentum, and then the effort that goes into it. I realize it's a change in format. We learned a lot through the change in format as well this time. But I want you guys to know that like you should know that your service in leading those groups had an impact, which is super important. It's very important that we get to talk about finances in our, because it plays a big role in our spirituality. And we have seen it pay off for, sorry for the pun, but we have seen people giving for the first time, which has been really incredible. We've seen people taking big steps of faith, and that is totally worth celebrating. But we would not have been able to do that without you guys saying yes. And so we are thankful, as always, that you guys are continuing to say yes and serving in this capacity. I realize sometimes it can be really hard because we kind of have that, like down on the ground, we have the, all right, here's what my 8 to 12 people are experiencing. But sometimes we try our best to communicate, hey, what's happening across the board. But I think one of the things that you'll see coming out of this as well is all of the amazing stories that have been happening that through Be Rich, that it's interesting because if you remember when we were promoting Be Rich this time, I think we were using a lot of the stories from the last time. And, you know, we still need to grab a bunch of those stories and things like that. But so many people took steps of giving, which is one of the hardest spiritual disciplines in this season of life. The other thing I saw is sort of coming out of this is I realized Be Rich also kind of made us a little tired. And one of the things I started noticing over the past year is that we kept falling back on the discussion questions every single week. And so that's one of the things I want to like work with us today on is how do we create more well-rounded groups, because what we're trying to do is create well-rounded followers of Christ. And, you know, back in 2014, Chris and I were observing the same pattern happening inside of our groups where it was just discussion questions every single week. And I think that's, you know, obviously we're providing you those questions every week. And I think it's also, what's great about the discussion questions is a good safety net. I feel like the one thing that's hard about that is that if the thing that you need your group to go in that, you know, that week or that month in a sense, like it gets kind of challenging because let's say we're in Be Rich, but they need to be talking about how do we share our faith with others or something like that. Things in there. So we're just trying to make sure that groups don't go stale. So when they end up doing the same repetitive thing, we see groups get a bit stale. And so that's why we're kind of bringing us back to the foundations again and saying how we shape our groups inside of this. Cool. So let me explain what's on your table. On your table, you have your workbook, which we'll be going into in our next session. You have a gift. Inside your gift, you might be wondering where the pen is. The pen is in the gift bag, which you'll also notice is a journal. There are 2 colors here. There's like a light blue and a dark blue. So if you don't like your color and you want to trade, go for it. And then we put a Twix bar in there because, you know, we figured better together. We could not figure, you know, what candy bar would communicate togetherness. And then what else is in there? I think we got stickers and a magnet this year as well. So cool. All right. So what I'd love for you guys to do for the next 10 minutes, I want you to get to know your people at your table. So one of the changes we made this year as well is we brought back our coaching system. So we currently have 5 coaches. We have Jean, Brenna, Ellie, Caitlin, and Christian helping us out with coaching this year. how coaching is going to work this year, or how our training is going to work, is we're going to get together as all of us once a quarter. So this is our once a quarter gathering. Our next one is on January 4th. And then midway through that quarter, your coach is going to lead a cohort with just the people who are at your table. There's a few more people who aren't here today that are part of your cohort, but that'll be kind of like a small group gathering for the small group leaders. And this is going to be a place where you can share your challenges, learn new ideas from others, and then we'll provide a topic for you guys to talk about. If you were back here in, I think, 2019 and 21, maybe through that era, we used to break out into our little coaching groups as well. The other thing that's really nice about the cohorts is that they get to be area specific, which is really nice. So like the married groups can talk about like the specific challenges that married groups face, and the guys can talk about the challenges they face, and the women can talk about that in that regard. And then the last thing is that your coach is also going to be meeting with you once a quarter. I just ask, I realize everyone has, like, when your coach reaches out, if you could just be generous and respond to them and not make it difficult, that would be awesome. With that, I don't know anyone that doesn't, but I hopefully don't get those like feedback. Cool. Awesome. So I would love for you guys to take the next 2 minutes if you want to use the story cards that are on a table. If you've never used story cards before, what is great about them is they are a great tool to get conversation going. So I hope that you guys get to see an example of this. So we love using story cards as a way to have our guests connect when they first come in. So one of the things to learn as you are starting your group is those first 15 to 30 minutes is really important for connection. But more importantly, you're giving them a chance to transition from wherever they're coming from to wherever, or to dinner group inside of that. And what's really important in this time is it's something that everyone can participate in. So that's the great thing about story cards, is this is something that everyone's able to be a part of. And then the other thing too is it gets people in the act of, question gets asked and we share an answer, we have a discussion. So this is one of the tools that we use to kind of help people inside that period. So I'll give you guys 10 minutes and yeah. Joe, can you give us just a little bit of music? Question. So the question is, choose a card that represents what's going on in your life right now. And remember, we have 10 minutes. We only have 10 minutes.